management report. Ray, if you've got, we've all read this, and you want to highlight any areas that we need to dwell on, now's the time.
I do have a spreadsheet about, it reflects change orders pending and approved. And you're showing a balance there, if you include both, about 71,000 total.
I have a question on that.
Yes.
On the additional paving, that's additional to paving that was in the,
yes.
we had paving in the main part of this, right? That was to do the main parking lot?
No, sir. This 37,000 is to do the main part. It's the top.
So we didn't have that in.
But it's important to remember, you do have a building under renovation. You have a building that's been sitting for 30 some years. And there are some things that are very difficult to anticipate. You also have a line of credit that will allow you some flexibility to pick up some unexpected, unbudgeted items like paving that will net you some savings in the long run. Because if you don't address paving the front parking lot, you're going to face that within 2 or 3 years anyway. You don't want to apply a coating which will resurface, crack again in a couple of years. You don't want to paint the existing surface and then have to repaint it again with top coating. So the condition of the front parking lot is poor. It shows a lot of spidering and it does need to be addressed. So I'm really convinced in talking to the engineer and dealing with LLC that they are very doing a very good job administering your construction project. We are trying to hold down the change orders.
I have a couple of questions, Rick, and I have one more than I had before you started talking. Should I be concerned that we're 2 months into a 6 months job and we're showing roughly over 70% of our contingency monies already earmarked? I'm concerned that 2 months into the job and we've now eaten up $71,000 worth of the $100,000 that we set aside for contingencies. That's troublesome to me. The other thing that's troublesome to me is there is no provision in this year's budget to tap into the line of credit for overruns. We've got to manage to our budget this year. Last year we didn't do a very good job of it, but this year who approves change orders?
Some of them have to be approved. You're under time restraints. To give you an example, we have a water supply line that was not provided for into an area that we would like to have designated as a food court. By delaying that and not doing it at that time, you're not be able to. You'd have to come back and retrofit that. So there was a change order of about 1,500.
Right, please.
So I approved that. Any expenditures over $5,000, this was discussed earlier. Any expenditures over $5,000 when Boyer approves. And we discussed this, I think, in January 3rd meeting. We tried to establish a guideline for the board. Because you are dealing with a work in progress, you can't afford delays. They'll cost you cost. And so if you have small change orders, I will approve them, and based on input from Wayne Boyer, from Pat Shields committee.
Let me say something on this. I did talk with Wayne today about this, and we both agree that almost 38K is the big driver here for what John's talking about, and we would certainly like to defer that as long as possible to see what other kinds of things pop up before we do it.
Well, that will be the final phase of the project. That's the last thing we want to do, is to pay that to your construction progress is completely done. Okay, so sure, and you make a good point, because 50% of this 71,000 are other items other than the paving. So paving is a significant portion of it.
Chris?
Then is it understood that if we do not have the money in the contingency budget at the end of this process, that we do not go ahead with the $37,000 additional expense without the board's approval? Is that completely understood?
Sure, and that would be
Fine.
that's understood.
I mean, what else, right?
Continuing with the understanding, I thought I just previously understood that Wayne had authority to approve anything over 5,000, is that incorrect?
That's the understanding I have.
Okay, so Wayne has the authority to approve that 37,000, continuing the understanding, that we just changed the understanding because there was something in there about a board vote.
But is that consistent with our governing documents? Does any one individual have the authority to approve a Christmas?
Chris?
We approved the contract with a $100,000 contingency, John.
Right.
We did not qualify it by saying, but you can't use the $100,000 contingency.
Oh, I understand that.
All right, so what we did do is direct them, that the president of the board be involved in and approve anything which was extraordinary.
All right.
Am I not correct, board?
Over 5,000.
Defined as 5,000.
Ray has authority under that.
Right. All right, that's how I defined extraordinary, but yes, that's more specific. That's what we did. So a board approval at this point is not required to approve something we've already approved. We can qualify it though, if that's what you want to do.
I don't know that I want to do anything right now, but I'm just trying to get informed.